There's this idea that Filipinos, we don't really like wagons. Is that really true? Well, this is the latest wagon from Subaru. And yes, it's a WRX. Wow, it's been a while, but it's also been a while since we drove a proper, exciting Subaru. You know, the kind with just 3 letters in its name, like BRZ or STI, or in this case, W, R, and X. Just add wagon. In this country, wagons are considered niche, meaning konti lang ang mahilig. And some of the reasons I heard when I was a kid about wagons and sedans is that many people prefer the sedan because it's a 3-box and the trunk is completely separate, or at least isolated, from the cabin. So if you're bringing home something smelly, pasalubong and the like vegan longanisa or durian or now onions, well, the smell is going to be contained in the trunk, not getting into the cabin. Of course, when it comes to practicality, the wagon really trumps the sedan. I think this is going to be the happy compromise for someone who wants something exciting but needs the practicality. Let me show you how. When Subaru revealed the WRX sedan, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, what happened? Now I'll roll in an image right now, and you kind of see that they tried to make it look SUV-ish with the black cladding all around. It just looked strange, it looked odd. But with the WRX wagon, that's all gone. I mean, we can now see what Subaru did with the design. You know what? I'm not gonna lie again. Subaru is not known for making pretty cars. But in the case of the WRX wagon, it looks very nice and pointy, very focused, very aggressive with the way the front is styled. Of course, all the black cladding bits are gone, which I do appreciate. But what I really like, of course, and it's a signature of every WRX and even the STI, this one, the hood scoop. Perfectly functional. We'll tell you more about it later. The WRX wagon is pretty much the same with the sedan up until about the B pillar. But back here, it just changes to the wagon format. Now you can see the difference right away. There's a lot more cargo volume with the wagon format as opposed to the sedan, which will be like right about there. So there and thereabouts, it will be cut off already. This one has way more cargo volume in here, so there's much more space for stuff that you need to bring with you. But what I really like is, for one, the way Subaru did the character lines here is very neat. It's actually kind of Mazda-ish with the way that goes. But it's the wider fenders, or at least the wider rear quarters to accommodate extra track width, both in the rear and in the front. What that gives you is better agility when cornering, and the longer wheelbase compared to the Levorg also means that it's more stable at highway speeds. Now, we do make a few jokes about Subaru's designs, but with the back of the WRX wagon, I think they nailed it. It really reminds me of the Mazda 6 Sport wagon that Mazda Philippines sold a few years back. I really like that car. Now, when you pop the tailgate, well, this really shows the advantage of having a wagon because you have way more space compared to a regular sedan. You have this tonneau cover to give you the trunk that you want to keep things out of prying eyes. You can lock it and retract it right there. Under here, the floorboard, you got your somewhat full-size spare because they mark it as a temporary spare, but it really looks full-size, so I guess that's kind of the new thing now instead of a donut space saver. But you have your tools over there, but personally, I would invest in maybe a crocodile jack if it'll fit in there, I'm not so sure, and maybe a cross wrench, just make life easier. Even has this hook here you can clip over there to prop it up if you're working on something. Now, when it comes to cargo space, this one has about 492 liters. That's the official code. In terms of measurements, right now, it's 42 inches wide, 41 inches long, and 27.5 up to there before you start scuffing your headliner. But if you want more space, what you do, you pull these 2 lever switches right here. Just like in the Forester, it just goes right up. What you have now is about 64 inches from here up to there. You can even go a little bit longer depending on what item you're carrying. But the space, the cargo area, balloons to around 1,430. Pretty impressive. Now, people go to Subaru when they want a performance car, but in the last few years, actually last few decades, Subaru has been changing it up. They want to make something more practical performance, something you can use every day, like a family car. But what's really important in a family car is safety. And in a vehicle, there are a lot of safety features, particularly in a Subaru vehicle. The most obvious safety feature is actually not the airbag, it's right here, the brakes. This one has disc brakes front and rear. So when you look at here, discs both front and rear are vented. That is something very important to keep you safe more than actually any other feature on the vehicle. The other one is the actual structure of the car. Now, in race cars, rally cars, they like to use things like roll cages to really stiffen up the cabin in the event of a crash. That's the kind of same principle that Subaru applied with their new platform called SGP, but of course, minus an actual roll cage. They did it by beefing up all the pillars and then using high-strength steel to kind of make everything stronger, particularly in the cabin. But they added a few clever bits as well. For example, right here, when you open this door. Now, in most modern cars, when you open the door, you can see the hard points that connect it to the vehicle, the actual door to the vehicle to support it up. It's usually 2 hinges in front and then the latch right here. But what Subaru did, they added a 4th point of contact right there. If you see that, it mates into here on the actual door frame. What that gives you is extra rigidity in the event of a collision. That is something very important, and that's really something we don't see in a lot of other vehicles. Safety features like passenger cells, airbags, all these kinds of things, these are last resort kind of items. It means something bad has already happened. But what Subaru is really focusing on, actually what a lot of car makers are focusing on, is having systems that prevent crashes, or at least mitigate the effects of the crash. That's why you have things like traction control, ABS, stability control. In the case of this one, you also have active torque vectoring, where it sends powers to whichever wheel can use it better. You have the all-wheel drive system, of course, and many more features. But the real enhancer here is something called EyeSight. And you can see that when you look at the windshield right over here. You see those 2 cameras? That's it. Basically, you have 2 eyes, like your own eyes. It gives you depth perception, awareness of what's going on around you. Same principle here, and even this one, I think this is the improved version already, because in the ones before, it was kind of offset from the windshield. So if you tint your vehicle, it kind of blocks the EyeSight. Not anymore, because they made sure that, unless you have a really bad tint installer, it's not going to disturb that in any way. But together with the other sensors in the vehicle, what EyeSight gives you is a long list of advanced safety features. Adaptive cruise control, for example, that's very useful. You've also got your lane keep assist. It follows the lane right along. You also have auto emergency braking. You have emergency steering assist, which the vehicle, if activated, it will avoid a crash if it can. These things and more you can activate and configure using the main screen right there. We'll tell you more about it later. For now, let's look at the engine bay. Okay, so let's pop the hood of the WRX wagon. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that it's really light. Now, one of the reasons is because it's got these hood dampers, so you don't need any more props. And also, this is made of aluminum, not steel, which is why when I tried to mount my GPS timer on it, it wouldn't cling onto it because it's not magnetic. This one also is not magnetic. I realize this one is, I think, plastic. We'll have to double check that. So basically the same material as the bumper. Now, the first thing you'll notice when you open the hood is that there's this big radiator-looking thing right there. That is the intercooler. It's fed by the hood scoop to cool down the air coming from the really, really hot exhaust-driven turbo before cooling that air down before it goes into the engine, giving you more power. Now, the engine itself, this is an F824, but the turbocharged version. It's basically the same version of or a different version of the engine used in the BRZ and GR86, a 2.4-liter flat 4-cylinder. Now, what that gives you is 275 horsepower in this version and 350 Newton meters of torque. The only transmission option for the WRX wagon is the Sport Lineartronic CVT. There is no manual version of this unless you're going for the sedan version. Now we can discuss 2 things that Subaru does really well and what makes them unique in the entire auto industry, actually. The first is the use of a flat 4 engine, meaning you have 2 cylinders on that side and 2 cylinders on this side. They're kind of moving horizontally opposed. What that gives you is a flat engine, meaning it stays low down to the ground. If you look at how the engine is, the engine block is actually way down there, unlike most other cars that have inline engines, which gives it a higher center of gravity. This one, they try to keep it as low as possible. The other thing is, well, we can't really see it here, we can kind of visualize it, is that the drivetrain, the transmission, the all-wheel drive system of this one, yes, all-wheel drive, it's very much symmetrical, meaning when you look at it down the middle, it's going to be equal on either side. What that gives you is a great balance from left to right, so it gives you an extra measure of control. If anything, when a driver sits inside, the driver is upsetting that balance, especially someone as heavy as me. Of course, this kind of setup, it did win Subaru a lot of championships back, like I think 2 decades ago already in the WRC. And of course, it also you can also feel these advantages when you're on the road. There are some drawbacks though. For example, I mentioned that the cylinders are horizontally opposed. Well, try imagining having to remove the spark plugs from an engine like this, because the head of the engine ends right here. Try getting those spark plugs or getting a tool in there. It's really something that Subaru has to do from their shop because it's kind of a labor-intensive job. Now, let's check out the interior. The first thing you notice when you step inside the WRX wagon is just how much better everything looks. I mean, the plastics, yes, there are still plastics here, but the way the materials come together, like the panel gaps, the soft touch leather pad here, it just feels very, very high grade, very, very good. Even has this soft panel up here, which is nice. Now, when you start fiddling around with the primary controls, you put your hands on the steering wheel, it's got a nice grip to it with the red baseball stitching. Feels very proper, has the flat bottom right here. Big guys like me like the flat bottom steering wheel. Has the WRX logo there with the carbon fiber weave. It just feels right, lots of buttons. Audio controls on the left. You have the advanced safety controls here on the right. So you have your cruise control, adaptive cruise control, distance to the car ahead kind of thing, speed, all that, limiter right there. SI drive, this one has SI drive right here. So for example, you go through intelligent, SI, and then goes up to sport, the S, and then being a WRX, it has sport, sharp, pretty cool. Depends on what kind of throttle response you want from the throttle and from the transmission. This one is PRND, right? The only option really available for the WRX wagon is the CVT. The manual is only available for the WRX sedan, the base model, but all well and good. Now, you put it into D, right? But you can also put it into M, into manual mode. But unlike many manual modes, this one does not have the plus minus right here. It just says M. What that gives you, it just activates the paddle shifters right here. So shift down on the left, shift up on the right, normal really. But that's something different with the WRX line of vehicles. Before, it used to always have the plus minus thing going on there, so not anymore. What's really going on with the WRX, the new line of WRX, is this main screen here. Now, what Subaru did, I mean, when I reviewed the Forester a few months ago, or last year, is that we were critical about how many screens there were, and because back then they had a little screen there, and then screen here, then screen here as well, and then had so many buttons. Not anymore. What Subaru did was they consolidated everything into this portrait touch screen right here. Of course, you still have the volume control there. It's fine-tuned right there. Temperature control buttons, but most of the other features of the vehicle can be controlled right here. So much so that they were able to reduce a lot of the buttons all around the vehicle. I mean, if you look here, you only have the electronic parking brake. There's a blank here. I'm not really sure what this is for. I have to check the other Subaru models, but you know that the panel here beside the driver's knee, instead of having so many features like the SRH, I mean, this one does have the headlights that follow the road. It's no longer controlled here, it's controlled here. All the other features that you would normally find in other Subarus that are controlled by a button here, a physical button, are now in here, including stability control, traction control, right here on the main screen. As with other features, of course, you got your radio, media, phone, Android Auto right here. You can control it right there, but the Android Auto stays a bit small there, which is weird. It doesn't try to go portrait or anything like that. But what's nice, also climate control, like I mentioned here, but your safety controls, right? All the features you would normally find here are now also in here, which is kind of weird because now you have a lot of blank spots over on your by your left knee, which is kind of strange, but nevertheless, see there? Steering responsive headlights, auto vehicle hold. So like when you're in traffic, auto start stop, you can control it right here. You have the driving assistance. So the pre-collision braking is controlled here. You can actually set all of this up before you drive. Kind of like a pilot's checklist kind of thing, which is kind of strange, but you know, once you get used to it, it's fine. But keep in mind that when you do turn off your vehicle and then start it again, some of the features go back to the normal setting, which I'm not a big fan of, because in normal traffic, I turn off pre-collision braking and a lot of the other features, and then it just comes back on, which is annoying. But once you go to the settings, you can go through more of the features. Like I said, there's a lot in here. The EyeSight features here, yep, it's all there. The lead vehicle acquisition, all that. Yeah, there is a lot. You really have to read your manual and get familiarized with your vehicle. Now, let's check out the back seat. To be honest with you, I don't normally sit in the back seat. It feels kind of alien to me because I'm always right here. But in this one, yes, it actually feels nice because, for one, the seat it's got a nice shape to it. And you also sit a little bit higher, unlike, let's say, the Civic, where you sit a bit lower, so it feels kind of claustrophobic in that one. In this one, no, you're high, your eye line can be just a little bit over the driver's headrest, but you can always, you kind of get a nice view of what's going on around you compared to a lot of other passenger cars. You got 2 AC vents here, 2 charging ports, 2.1 amps. You've got pockets here, center armrest with 2 cup holders, power windows. It's a nice place to be. Also, it does have a recline lever right here, so you can actually chill in the back of the WRX wagon. But still, the best seat in the house is the driver's seat. So let's take this car out for a drive. The first time I drove a WRX, it was still an Impreza WRX. So that was before the split between Impreza and WRX in the Subaru lineup. And I remember that car very clearly because it was more brash, more boy racer-ish. It was really fun. But it did have compromises, particularly with the way it drove. You wouldn't really take it on EDSA. Yes, the suspension is still fairly good compared to, let's say, an STI, but EDSA wouldn't be your first road of choice. You'd probably pick, the better C5 areas, that kind of thing. This one, it really surprises me because on EDSA, like right now, I'm just cruising. It's nice and comfortable. Yes, the suspension is fairly soft, actually softer than what I would have expected in a car branded as WRX. The rear end does tend to have a little bit of a bounce. Not too much, it's actually still nice and controlled, but compared to the Levorg before, definitely better. The way the powertrain behaves is also super slick, super smooth. It's like a nice surge of acceleration when you're going around in the city. And right now we're in SI drive mode, in the intelligent drive of the SI drive. And yes, it is very smooth, very comfortable. That's what it's supposed to do. When it comes to fuel economy, what I was getting so far in the city was around 7.5 kilometers per liter. Not really stellar, but I think it's actually still pretty good considering this is a bigger 2.4 liter engine compared to the 2.0 in the Levorg and the 2.0 in the WRX before, the sedan version. Subaru is of course highlighting the EyeSight driver assist system with the all-new WRX Wagon. And it's actually a really good system depending on where you use it. Because me, in the city, I tend to shut off like things like the auto emergency braking, they call it pre-collision braking, because the way you maneuver around city and the way others maneuver around you, unfortunately, is not ideal. So there are times that when, let's say, a motorcycle cuts in laterally, if that's the right term, the system just goes a bit crazy, and you don't really want that. The only features I really use here are the lead car departure alert, those kinds of things. On the highway, it would really be useful, let's say on a really long drive to Baguio, but right now I don't have time to go up to Baguio. But what I did notice was when we were communicating from car to car, when we were doing our tracking shot, when I would use the two-way radio, every time I would push the transmit button, I'm guessing the interference from the radio disconnects my Android Auto right away. I haven't tried it with Apple CarPlay, but yeah, there you go. So Subaru engineers will likely have to take a look at what's going on there. As you can see right now, I'm kind of stuck on EDSA corner Aurora. Yeah, you know what? I've had just about enough of traffic. Let's go somewhere else where we can enjoy the Impreza wagon. Back up top, and welcome back to Marilake. It's been a while since I've driven here, but again, like heading somewhere that you're very familiar with, you just fit right in, and this WRX wagon is like a fish in water. Let me show you now. You can try Sport Mode S. It's good, the response is a little bit quicker, but the one you'll enjoy here, Sport Sharp. That's when the computer unlocks pretty much everything, gives you the most direct experience, the sharpest experience that you can get from this car. And then you put it into manual mode. Oh yeah, I was already in manual mode. And now you can just start pulling the pedals and have a bit of fun. Coming out of this one, oh yeah, braking feels positive, and then you turn, it just kind of holds an angle and then stays there. There's no pitching, rolling, that kind of thing. It just holds it, and you can kind of find your way around the corners very easily. That's what Subaru is giving you, is like a measure of extra control, and it's just so enjoyable when you have the right road to stretch it out on. Like right now, brake hard, ooh, there you go, nice. Turn in, it just holds it. It just holds it, and even though the suspension is on the softer side, it's actually a lot of fun. The CVT shows its limitations. You know, it's just not as direct. Subaru has offered the WRX with the CVT for quite a while now, since 2014. And honestly, I think it was a smart move then, because back then the reputation of DCTs weren't so good. But now the new generation of DCTs, the wet type DCTs, are actually really, really good. And I think if Subaru went and got one of those and put it in here, it might actually be a good thing. Still, I prefer a manual for a road like this, but for 99.9% of my driving, I think the CVT will be okay. DCT, I would prefer. And at the end of it all, once you're done having your fun, you just put it into intelligent mode and you just cruise quietly. That is the beauty of something like the WRX, whether it's a wagon or a sedan. I would much prefer the styling of the wagon and the practicality of the wagon. But that's what it really offers. It offers you a car that you can enjoy every day, or actually you'll find practical every day, and something you won't think twice about, oh, it's gonna be my Sunday car because it's uncomfortable. No, this one is comfortable, it is enjoyable, but when you want to have a bit of fun, just a flick of a few switches, you are good to go. It's one of the things that it gives you all that you want, a lot of what you need in one package. You don't have to have space for another car in your garage. You just get this and you're good to go. 2.588 million. I think this WRX wagon is a great package for someone who wants the performance of a sports car, I guess, but with the practicality of the wagon. Someone who needs the space and the versatility for things like packages, grocery shopping, or even a baby stroller, but they still want to be able to enjoy driving it every single day. Basically, it's for the boy racer who has to grow up, who has to go through adulting. Now, when it comes to the model range of this Subaru WRX wagon, I would not pick this version. I would pick the higher version, the TS, because at just 150,000 pesos more, I think, well, you get a lot of nice goodies, including the sunroof, adjustable suspension, and many, many more. Now, there are still going to be people there who are saying, oh, Vince, Pinoys, we don't like our wagons. We prefer sedans. And that's just not true, because look in your garage, chances are you'll find a wagon. It's just a little bit taller, and we most likely call it an SUV or a crossover. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya.com.